Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Before I start, just know there will be spoilers. So after the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I saw a lot of people saying that this was the best MCU movie in years, and probably an equal amount of people saying it was a disaster. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, obviously, but I gotta say, for me, the extreme reactions to this movie are kind of baffling, because for better or worse, even as someone who doesn't look into leaks or rumors much at all, Doctor Strange 2 is exactly the movie I expected it to be. A Marvel movie with a lot of the usual MCU strengths and weaknesses, with a decent bit of Sam Raimi slapstick inventiveness thrown in. There's a lot of enjoyable little moments here, fun bits of creative visual flourishes, some funny scenes, and solid character introductions, but overall, I couldn't help but feel like there was an opportunity to do something much weirder and more interesting with this multiverse concept. As a massive fan of Raimi's filmography, and as someone who wants to see Marvel keep trying to push their formula into interesting new directions, I came away, I'll be honest, mildly disappointed. To me, this movie is pretty far from a disaster, but it's also not really one I'm rushing to revisit either. Overall, it just feels like a pretty standard MCU movie with a couple of surprises that I'm not sure totally work. And after 14 years and 4 phases, I'm just not sure if that's enough.
I have studied the mystic magics. My life has taken on deeper meaning as I have prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Baron Mordo.
Before I get into some of my real criticisms here, I do want to single out some stuff I liked. This movie has a pretty stellar cast, from reliable pros like Benedict Wong and Elizabeth Olsen, to Marvel newcomers like Xochitl Gomez. Getting the right America Chavez was absolutely critical here because so much of the movie rests on her shoulders, and I think they really pulled it off, as Gomez is able to put her stamp on what is, in the script, a fairly thin character with a quickly alluded to backstory. Though I will say, I've never loved Benedict Cumberbatch's take on Strange himself. I know a lot of people would disagree with me, and I think he's perfectly fine as a supporting character in things like Infinity War, but I've never liked how limited his performance seems to be by saddling him with this American accent. It's not like the flat, affectless accent is a huge problem, but I do think the actor tends to give better performances without it, and I really wish they had just been okay with giving Stephen Strange a UK accent from the start. It's not a huge deal, but it's something I find myself thinking about when he has this much screen time. But going back to the positives, I do want to single out some of Sam Raimi's contributions to the film overall. Brought onto the project after Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson left, Raimi manages to make the movie his own in some really fun ways. There's the obvious stuff, like the Bruce Campbell cameo, but it's more than that. The first half of this movie is absolutely packed to the rafters with endless exposition. Information about the multiverse, about the Darkhold, catching viewers up on what happened in WandaVision, it's a lot. I don't think the script is always handling that elegantly, but Raimi does the best he can with that material, creating some really visually compelling montages and clever illustrations of the Scarlet Witch using her powers. Now, I'm sure some MCU fans will take issue with Raimi's style, especially when it comes to the forefront of the movie. That makes sense to me. The MCU sensibility is usually to keep a kind of ironic distance from the more silly elements of its comic book origins, often having the characters point out more over-the-top things in dialogue that the audience might find outlandish as well. There's still a decent bit of that in this script, but Raimi is much more comfortable leaning into things that might strike people as, for lack of a better term, corny. I've never really liked using that word on the channel, as I think it's often leaned on for a lot of lazy criticism, but I'm sure it's exactly how many people will describe sequences like Strange's musical note battle or Cumberbatch playing a possessed corpse. Here's the thing, I actually liked that stuff quite a bit. Now granted, I love a lot of Raimi's past work, from the more mature A Simple Plan to the slapstick cartoonishness of Army of Darkness, and when you add to that a real fondness for Silver and Bronze Age comics, yeah, this is not stuff that's gonna bother me. I really liked those touches, and I think they gave the movie some much needed uniqueness in an otherwise pretty by-the-book script. So I should probably talk a little more about that script. I will cut the screenwriter some slack here because as the MCU continues to weave in and out of both TV and film year after year, the continuity is becoming a heavier burden to deal with. I think that's pretty clearly illustrated by Wanda's descent into villainy here. On paper, I see why they thought this was a great idea. Elizabeth Olsen definitely has the acting chops to pull off that transition well, but I think in the execution, there were some problems. To make the film accessible to viewers who haven't kept up with years of movies and a TV show, her motivation had to be really clear and easy to understand for everyone just walking into the theater. But I think that actively works against the expectations of MCU fans who have followed the character, and especially WandaVision, really closely and expect her character's journey to cleanly track from one project to the next. By trying to serve both camps, I'm not sure anyone truly comes away satisfied. Everyone has to sit through a ton of exposition that catches new viewers up and fills in the gap between projects. But also people who pay really close attention to this character arc will likely walk away with a lot of questions, as its version of Wanda really boils her down to the bare essentials. Like, if the Scarlet Witch is able to see into an infinite amount of universes, why would she pick one without Vision, or her brother who she saw brutally killed right in front of her? Maybe these sound like nitpicks, but I think they're valid questions if the MCU actually wants to continue down this highly interconnected path. I understand that putting Vision and Quicksilver into this movie would probably make it feel more overstuffed than it already is, but if you're telling WandaVision viewers that this is the continuation of that character's story, they're going to expect the more fleshed out Wanda that we saw on television for a season, and the character as written here I don't think lives up to that. Speaking of overstuffed, let's talk about some of this multiverse material. The Illuminati seems to have grabbed a lot of attention online, and I totally understand why. There's some really splashy casting decisions being made here, namely bringing back Patrick Stewart as Professor X, and The Office's John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Initially, it's an engaging moment, and it's followed by a death scene that's actually pretty brutal by MCU standards, in a battle that might actually feel at home and invincible. But I'm just not sure that introducing or reintroducing all these characters was worth skimping out on Wanda's story. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the Mr. Fantastic casting works at all. I don't really have anything against Krasinski, but he's playing the smartest man in the world here, and doesn't really convey that sense at all. Not only does Richards come off as pretty stupid because of his actions in the script, I don't think the actor brings much to elevate that script either, and at times it kind of feels like he could just be reading off cue cards, which is really frustrating honestly, especially because I think they might have the perfect actor for Reed in this movie, Anson Mount, who brings a real sense of intelligence, humor, and camaraderie to his role as Captain Pike on the new Star Trek show Strange New Worlds. He doesn't get to show off any of that here though, as he's mostly silent, returning to his Inhumans role. And if I'm being honest, that was probably a Marvel project better left forgotten. Lashana Lynch and Haley Atwell really feel like afterthoughts here too, especially Atwell's Peggy Carter, who mostly just gets to do a callback to a famous Captain America line and then immediately dies. Patrick Stewart fares a little better, and even has a nice sequence with just him and Olsen playing the alternate universe Wanda. But once these characters all died so quickly, I started to wonder if they really needed to be in this movie at all, or if this stretch of the running time could have been much better served by focusing more on Wanda or America's characters, giving their journeys here a bit more nuance. Something that I think could have helped this script out a lot. As it is, the whole Illuminati section felt a bit too gimmicky to me, and left me really hoping that Krasinski doesn't reprise this role in an actual Fantastic Four movie, unless he commits to really rethinking this performance from the ground up. At the end of the day, I just think this script is a bit too shallow and lightweight, even with its attempts to deepen Strange himself. One sequence I really did enjoy here though was Strange in America falling through various different universes. The VFX teams got the chance to do some really odd and interesting stuff here, and I think they nailed it. Honestly, I could have done with them working that stuff into the story more. It's kind of sad that so much of the second act is set in like labs and kind of drab buildings, because when the movie wants to run wild with its visuals, I think it does a pretty great job. The creative CGI work has been a big highlight of both Strange movies, and if they ever do another one, I really hope they embrace that even more, instead of just confining them to a few sequences. The third act, I will say, did kind of manage to win me back over. Is it pretty standard MCU stuff? Sure, but it's a well-executed version of that with a smart twist. I enjoyed Zombie Strange here, and how he could have a really earnest conversation with America and look and talk a bit like Evil Ash from Army of Darkness, all at the same time. In the end though, I'm just pretty mixed on this movie. It's much, much better than Raimi's last film, Oz the Great and Powerful, but it doesn't pack the emotional punch of Spider-Man 2, or let him go as crazy as Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness. Honestly, even the horror stuff here I didn't think worked quite as well as his work on Ash vs. the Evil Dead's pilot or Drag Me to Hell. As an MCU movie, I think it's an okay entry into a pretty shaky, often very unfocused Phase 4. But what worries me is that I can see a lot of the problems that plague comic book continuity really creeping into the storytelling here. So I won't say there's nothing to recommend in this film. I don't think that's true at all. If you love these characters, there's going to be plenty for you here. But it's not the home run that I was hoping for, and coming from one of my favorite directors, that's really too bad. Here's hoping Thor: Love and Thunder manages to build something that feels a little more fresh.
Years ago, when a car accident ended my career as a prominent New York doctor.
So, not everyone can be Mr. Fantastic, but building your knowledge of STEM topics is easier than it's ever been, thanks in part to Brilliant. Brilliant believes the best way to learn is through interactivity. That's shown really clearly in their scientific thinking topic, which is constantly challenging you with interesting puzzles and problems to solve. Those skills build on themselves, giving you the tools you need to tackle STEM topics that you might find intimidating. With Brilliant, you learn by doing, at your pace and with a ton of flexibility to fit into your schedule, making it really accessible to people who still want lifelong learning but maybe don't have a ton of free time on their hands. So go to brilliant.org/midnight and try it for free. Oh, and the first 200 people to go to that link will get 20% off the annual premium subscription. That's brilliant.org/midnight.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes, too.